Boom, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the DJ Kenny Parker Show. We do this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What's good? What's good? Spook Round 4Q, you are first today in the building. Big up to the Rewind crew. And Spook Realm says, hit that like button, subscribe, and get the book. My brother's name is Kenny. Thank you so much. The link is in the description below. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you get a chance. I know everybody watching this is subscribed already. I know this. But if you could get a chance to hit the like button, as you guys know, I say every week, I try to, that it helps the algorithm. Gregory Netta says, yo, Kenny, I saw the trailer for the new Naked Gun movie. First of all, I didn't know there was a new Naked Gun movie. And how can there be a Naked Gun movie without, what's his name, Nielsen? I can't remember, I'm saying his name wrong, but he was hilarious. Nielsen? Can't remember his name. He was absolutely the best in the Naked Gun movies. I don't know how they're gonna do it without him, but he says, and your brother Karis One Sound of the Police was the main song. Awesome. Word up, son. Word, that is awesome, because those checks, those movie checks be like 40 grand, I think. I think the movie checks are like $40,000, something like that, to split up between whoever owns the publishing. So it would be $40,000 to split between KRS-One and Showbiz. Shout out, Brother Show, not trying to tell all your business. I think it's like $40,000 for a movie, or 25 to 40, something like that. I think 25 for TV. It's something like that. But that's a big check. Publishing is the gift that keeps on giving. And that's why when people steal people's publishing, it's such a crime. I'm not going to get into that this week unless y'all force me to. Y'all know how I feel about that. Haitian Space Program, what up? Rosmel says, RIP to hip-hop pioneer Pow Wow of the Soul Sonic Force. I'm going to get into him in a second. But yes, let's see. G Doyle, what up? Says, big up Kenny Parker and blessed to all tuning in for the live, and big shout out to the Rewind crew. Adds the Barbarian, what's up? Terrence Hill, I see the regulars in here. Rod Justice, what up? Rod Justice says, what's up, Kenny? I'm back. Finally saw Masta Ace on Sunday. Dope. Shout out to Ace One. I've known Masta Ace for a long time. Just a super cool brother. Just a super, super cool brother. People don't know he has he went to college at the University of Rhode Island. We have a mutual friend there named Silk, who used to play ball there. Yeah, Masta Ace went to the University of Rhode Island. I don't know if he graduated or if he left to pursue music, but I know he went there. And just a cool brother and a dope MC. Always quality music, man. Let's see. Corey Flood says, RIP Pow Wow. I'm not exactly sure what he did, but I know the name. Pow Wow is a member of the Soul Sonic Force. Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation, is Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force was the name of the group that did one of the greatest hip hop records, and probably could possibly be the dopest produced hip hop record of all time, called Planet Rock. And for those of you that's old enough to remember 1980, what year was that dropped? 1982, when Planet Rock hit, it hit like a nuclear bomb. The production, I remember thinking to myself, this is probably what the future is gonna sound like. Planet Rock was so far ahead of its time. The production is still dope today. You could put Planet Rock right now up against the production up against the music that's out today, and it still stands as some of the greatest produced music of all time. And then the Soul Sonic Force, I do believe it was MC Globe, the GLOBE, Pow Wow, Mr. Big, GLOBE, Pow Wow, and I forgot, it might be a fourth one on there. I'm sorry if I'm not remembering the name. This is off the top of my head. I do believe Pow Wow is the one who said in Planet Rock. What a great song. It just started a whole genre of music called freestyle, and a lot of the Miami bass sound is based on it. It just changed the game musically. It was on Tommy Boy Records. I do believe it was a platinum single. Just a monster record. And I hate that every week we come on here and we have to say RIP to one of our hip hop family. I don't believe I ever met Pow Wow. I don't think I ever met any of the Soul Sonic Force, although we did do a show with them in SOBs, probably in like 05, 06, something like that. There was a show at SOB's, Soul Sonic Force, Jungle Brothers, and KRS-One, and I was DJing that show. So I got to perform with them, and if someone had told me that Kenny, the Kid in 1982, that you would be on the same stage as the guys who made Planet Rock, I would have told you you were crazy. What an incredible hip hop journey I've been on. But once again, rest in peace to Pow Wow from the Soul Sonic Force, Planet Rock. And they also did, I think, okay, it was Planet Rock, and then there was a bunch of ones that came after it, because I know there was Play at Your Own Risk. That was the Planet Patrol, who kind of did a song like that. Soul Sonic Force had another one. Renegades of Funk, I think, was the other big song that they had. But yeah, he was a important figure in hip hop. Let's see, let me scroll down. You know, Corey Flood, what up, says, tonight's special guest on the DJ Kenny Parker Show will be Al Scratch of Ill Al Scratch. Al Scratch called me and I forgot to hit him back. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Al Scratch, what up? He wanted to be a guest on this show. I need to reach back out to him, and hopefully he'll accept my apology and accept the invitation. Shout out to Al Scratch. Shout out to Ill as well. Ill was cool too. I remember him back in the day. I haven't seen him since their record Where My Homies was out. But shout out to him. Let me move down. I'm moving slow today. JT, what up? MMA Crossfire, what up? Papa Sincere, Jason Wall, what up? VHS Hip Hop, Charles 13X. Let's see. Do I recognize this name? Gary's Garage, what up? It says Philly in the building. You know I love Philly here. Chef Daddy, what up? Let me scroll down. Big Bat, Big Bat says happy heavenly birthday to Biz Markie. I forgot about that. And you know how much I love Biz, and I talk about Biz. I got like 3 videos with Biz on this channel. That was my dude. Happy birthday, Biz. I know you somewhere making people laugh. Charles 13X says KP moving on military timing. I do think you mean by that trying to be on time. I was brought up to respect people's time. I appreciate everyone that comes on this channel. And so I try to keep the time. If I say I'm going to be here at 8 o'clock, I try to be here at 8 o'clock. When I played college basketball, I learned a really good lesson about being on time. I'll tell y'all guys a quick story. When I was a freshman, we used to have to be on the court, ready, dressed and ready to play at 3 o'clock. You had to be on the floor at 3 o'clock. So, you know, guys would be coming in from class, you'd be getting your ankles taped, you'd be getting dressed, put on all your stuff. So guys would just casually go upstairs. So by 2:45, I was the only one still left in the locker room getting dressed, but I still had 15 minutes. So I finally got dressed. It was 10 minutes to 3. I was 10 minutes early and I went upstairs. When I got into the gym, the coach had already started practice and had sat everybody down and had started talking to everybody because everybody was already upstairs. And here I come. And the coach starts cursing me out. Look at Kenny, last one up here, he's a freshman. That's why he's not gonna get any playing time. He doesn't even know how to show up on time, and he's cursing me out in front of everybody, literally cursing. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, I'm 10 minutes early. It's 10 minutes to 3. We're supposed to be on the floor at 3 o'clock. I'm 10 minutes early. But because everybody else was upstairs at 15 minutes to 3, I looked whack and late. And I made up in my mind that day, I'm never gonna be late to practice or just late in general. So for me, I've heard the saying, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And so I try to live my life by that. I try to be on time. I try to respect other people's time. And I appreciate it when people are on time for me. So thank you so much for putting that there, Charles 13X. I try to be here. Now watch next week, I'll be late. MMA Crossfire says Leslie Nielsen. That's his name. Leslie Nielsen. I could not get his name out. That dude was mad funny. Yeah, and every single one of those movies, he had me dying laughing. It was his straight face. He had his straightest face doing the stupidest stuff. Kennard Roberts, what up? Let me scroll down. I did not know Leslie Nielsen was Canadian. Did not know that. Wonder what how does Canadian people feel about Americans right now? Anybody from Canada out there? Can you give me like a quick pulse of what Canadians think of Americans at the moment? H. Bippy, what up? Brian Richardson says, what up? James Green. Rod Justice said Masta Ace dedicated his show on Sunday to DJ Mr. C. That's dope. Shout out Mr. C. Me and Mr. C go way, way, way back to the 80s. I met Mr. C before I met Kane, before I met Scoob and Scrap. I met Mr. C. He was always cool with me. Last time I saw him, we exchanged numbers. We talked on the phone for a minute. I still have his voicemail on my phone. And he's gone, just like that. Oh, this is interesting. Lethal 5 Flow says, Kenny, I was watching that Last Man Standing documentary. I don't know what that is, Last Man Standing. Do you know they show a clip of Suge dancing to Black Cop for a couple of seconds at the club? Word? Oh, that's dope. For those that don't know, I think I've talked about this. What did I talk about this on? Sound of the Police recap that I did on this channel, but I mentioned that I am an uncredited co-producer of that song, Black Cop. That was an important production for me. I think I told the whole story. I think it was in the Sound of the Police. I think it was the Sound of the Police. No, not the Sound of the Police breakdown. It was the Sex and Violence breakdown. I got to go back and look at that and see if I told the whole story. I know I've told that whole story before. If I didn't, then maybe I'll do that as an epic fail because it was funny actually. But I know I told that story here, but that's actually dope. I never met Suge Knight. heard infamous stories about him well before 95 when he did the famous, you know, if you don't want the producer dancing all in the videos, come to death row. Before he did that, that was 95. I heard about Suge Knight in 93. He was already causing a lot of trouble by that point. Corey Fuss says, Kenny, get into it about publishing. Nori says it's worthless if you don't know what to do with it. What do you think that means? Worthless? We gotta define the term worthless, because what's worth something to one person might not be worth something to another. I don't know what Nori's financial situation is. I know he's done very well in the game. I don't know how much money he has, but for those that don't know, real quick, publishing is credit and money that's given to the writers of a particular song. And when I mean writers, I mean music and lyrics. And they break it up into music and lyrics. 50% music, 50% lyrics. In the publishing world, they call it 100% and 100%. But really, it's 50% music and 50% lyrics. Whoever writes the lyrics and writes the music, it's equal, gets a percentage of the royalties, the publishing royalties, which means every time the song is played on the radio, on TV, in movies, at concerts, in the supermarket, on the elevator, in a basketball game, anytime your music is used by someone else, they have to pay a fee. And that fee gets divvied up amongst whoever's in the publishing credits. And there's companies like ASCAP and BMI that collects publishing for people and disperses it quarterly. Now, most artists I'd say up until the 90s, didn't even know what publishing was. Everyone owns their publishing. Everyone watching this channel right now, you own your own publishing. If you write a song, you own your publishing. You either have to sign away your publishing to someone or they buy it from you, but you have to legally give your publishing to someone else. Now, if you don't know what publishing is, a lot of record companies snuck and wrote that they own your publishing into your contract. And if you don't know what publishing is, you'll just sign a contract and you just signed away all the royalties for whenever your record is played. Some people, some artists and producers and record companies will add their name to the publishing. So say there's two people that wrote the record, 50-50. Record company might throw their name in, or some producer or record exec might throw their name in the publishing. Had nothing to do with the record, but threw their name in there. So now it's split three ways. Now everybody gets a third of the money for a person who had nothing to do with writing the song. A lot of times, I could go into the horror stories of how people lost their publishing. But for the most part, everybody got jerked up until the 90s when people understood the publishing. I'm not even gonna go into how our elders didn't teach us the lessons. That's a subject for another day. But now Nori says, I don't know if this is true. I'm taking Corey Flood's word for it, that Nori said publishing is worth it if you don't know what to do with it. Now, let's say you own your publishing and you have songs out. You can sell your publishing to someone and they'll give you a chunk of money. Now, let's use a number, 25,000. Let's use that number. Let's say you sell your publishing for $25,000. That means you will get no more money off your publishing until the people who bought your publishing makes $25,000 or more, whatever the deal is, and then you'll start getting money again. So until you outlive your publishing contract, you will get no more money. A lot of people sold their publishing for little money. Gold chains, drugs, little money, anything, get bailed out of jail, anything, they've sold their publishing and lost millions. If you don't sell your publishing and you don't do anything, you'll get checks. If you're signed to say ASCAP or BMI, you'll get checks quarterly in the mail. Now, for me, over the years, I, for one, did not do a publishing deal, so I own my publishing. So for me, over the years, I've gotten nice sized checks. I've gotten small checks. I've gotten checks for 75 cents. It costs more to mail the record. It costs more to mail the check than it did what the check was worth. But to me, that's okay. That's my 75 cents. Give me mine. I don't think it's worthless because you can get money. The thing about publishing is that you get publishing for things that you did 25, 30, 40 years ago. The money just keeps coming. And then when you pass away, you pass your publishing on to your children. They inherit your publishing. Just like when the Notorious B.I.G. passed away, and Faith Evans, who was his wife, who they were estranged at the time, still inherited his publishing. The Notorious B.I.G., that's worth millions. And she did a gigantic thing, was she chose to split her percentage of the publishing with Miss Wallace, Biggie's mother, to make sure that Biggie's mother would always have money coming in. Faith did not have to do that, but she did that anyway, which I'll tip my hat to Faith Evans. That was gigantic of her to make sure Biggie's mother would always be okay. So you can pass your publishing on. There's people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just because they made a hit record decades ago. And so when he says it's worthless, if you never sell any records, then your publishing checks will probably not be that big, or if anything. And so it's not worthless because you didn't sell anything, so you didn't make anything. The only way it could be worth something is if you sold some records and you can leverage that publishing. So to say to know what to do with it, I guess he means sell it. I mean, what else can your publishing, either you can sell it or you can keep it. If you keep it, you keep your money, whatever that money may be, or if you sell it, you get a chunk of money and then you have to recoup that. Now you could have a song, look at some of these older artists who made records that didn't sell anything in the 70s, nothing. Jazz records, certain records, they were literally made them nothing. But then rap came along and sampled these people's old records. And all of a sudden, a record that was worth nothing is now being used on a platinum record. Now, all of a sudden, that publishing is worth millions of dollars when a week ago it was worth nothing. Now, had you kept your publishing, you would be entitled to the money. Had you sold your publishing or lost your publishing, you would have got nothing but heartache, which is what most artists got. I know I'm being very long-winded about this, but for future artists, anybody watching this or anybody who knows an artist out there, the publishing is where the money's at. You can make more money on your publishing of your song than your actual royalties. If you know anybody who's an artist, tell them to be very careful what they sign. And if anybody steps to them about their publishing without offering money, they're a snake and a crook, and you should get away from them as quick as possible. Now, I could go more and more into publishing. I mean, it gets deeper, but I'm simplifying it. But as you guys know on this channel, I'm very sensitive about that subject. So please excuse me for being very long-winded. GF Worrell says, big up Regs, the newbies, and DJ KP. Big up. Yes. Hip Hop Junkie says, what up? Jason Wall says, Rhode Island Rams, where Lamar Odom played ball. Yes. And I want to shout, like I said, we was talking about Masta Ace. I want to shout out my man Silk, Carlton Owens. He is still the all-time leading scorer in Rhode Island Rams history. All-time leading scorer and all-time leading assist in the history of the school. He played there in the 80s. His records still stand. And I played high school ball with him. That was my man. So anybody out there that knows Silk, what up, Silk? And he was friends with Masta Ace. So it was like a little connection. But yeah. Charles 13X says, Ken, you got a vlog next time you go on tour with KRS-One. Working on that right now. DJ Quiet Storms checking in from Beantown. What up, Beantown? And I was watching something the other day and they were saying Boston. Me being from New York, Boston sounds so weird to me, Boston. Like we say Boston, it's Boston. But I know Boston is wrong because people from, seems like everywhere else in America, including people from Massachusetts, say Boston. But Boston sounds so weird to me. The Boston Celtics sounds weird to me. It's Boston. I'm from New York, and we do everything right here. It's Boston. Okay. I know I'm going to get lit up for that one. Born Allah, peace KP, peace to the chat. Be more in the house. Big up Baltimore. Papa Sincere says, I was at the URI, University of Rhode Island show with Scott LaRock. Wow, that's a long time. Wow, that's early BDP. That Masta Ace opened up for and everyone was wilding out. That's dope. Masta Ace probably was still at the college at that point. John Walker says, DJ Red Alert is in the Planet Rock video. Yes, he is. Patrick Wise says, Carlton Silk Owens was a nice guard. Yes, he was. Incredible basketball player. That's my dog, too. Great person. Oh, Terrence Hill says, yeah, Pow Wow forgot his rhymes, so he started doing the sounds. Zin, 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 which ended up being so dope and so original and probably better than whatever rhyme he was going to say. That video is dope, too. If you ever want to capture the essence of hip-hop in 1982, the real essence of it all, check out the Planet Rock video. I'm gonna scroll down to, I'm falling behind, so I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. Once again, rest in peace to Pow Wow from the Soul Sonic Force. We all grew up listening to your voice, and your contributions to that song changed the game. So big up to you. Stack Stone says, Kenny, my brother, you know me from Flatbush and Lincoln High School and the LQ. Word, big up. I was in all of those places. Y'all know my Flatbush roots go very deep. And of course, I went to high school, Abraham Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, New York, out in Coney Island. Shout out to the Rail Splitters. And I was in the LQ. We talk about the LQ a lot on this channel. The most influential club of all time, in my opinion. Let's see. MMA Crossfire says, I think a lot of Canadians are not very pleased with the tariff war the American administration started. I'm sure. I'm trying to find out what Canadians think of Americans right now. DJ Platform 204, what up? Says, I'm Canadian and our Prime Minister is not happy with the Trump tariffs and how he is saying Canada needs to be part of 51st state. That is wild, man. Our leader says Canada is not for your sale. Sorry. Not for sale. Can't even argue with that. Corey Flood, Mr. C was in the sequel to a thing called Kim. I did not even know there was a sequel to that song. We talked about that Biz Markie song last week. Oh, Hip Hop Junkies, I think I saw this. I wanted to comment on this. You talked about top 25 female rappers or something. And he says, I think Billboard did list Nicki Minaj at #1 and Missy Elliott at 2. I don't have a problem with that. It's hard to, I don't like using the word judge. I'm not going to use the word judge. I don't think people should judge other MCs. I'm going to use the word rate in their rankings, rank. It's hard to rank female MCs for me because I have to put an asterisk next to their names because most of them, probably in the high 80s percentile range, didn't write their songs. So it's hard to say who was dope because someone else wrote their rhymes. And like I said, I've never rapped a day in my life, but if I got Big or Jay-Z or Nas or Ice Cube or any number of people who were writing rhymes for females at the time to write a rhyme for me, I would probably sound dope. I've never rapped a day in my life. So it's really hard for me to measure female MCs. For the ones that I believe wrote, I would put at the top, I would put Missy right at the top, Lauryn Hill, although L Boogie didn't rap enough for me. I think she is the best rapper of all time, female. She's one of the best ever, but female rapper, I think Lauryn Hill might be the best, but she didn't rap that much. She probably sung more than she rapped. I think if we take all of Lauryn Hill's rhymes, every rhyme she ever said, and put them in a song format, 3 bars and a hook, does she even have enough for one album? Does she have 10 songs? If we took all of her bars and put them together, let's see, 3 bars per song. Does she have 30 bars that came out? Between her album, the Fugees, guest appearances, I don't know. So that's why it's hard for me to put her at the top, only because she hasn't rapped as much. But I have a lot of respect for Missy Elliott because she wrote a lot of raps and a lot of songs. And Nicki Minaj, I believe, wrote her songs. I don't know if she had help on some of them or how that worked out, but that schizophrenic style that she has where she be changing from one person to the next in the records and going back, I believe that that's her style. I'm going to believe that she wrote most of that. And if she wrote that, you have to put her way up there. Now, Billboard is probably ranking as far as charts, songs, record sales, your position on the Billboard chart. I could see why they would have Nicki probably as #1 and Missy. But for me, it's hard to rank females MCs, like I said, because a lot of them were just nice looking women who were molded into MCs. I hope you guys following what I'm saying. So it's kind of hard for me to say who's the best. It's a great question right here. Jack Swagger says, Kenny, have you ever thought about asking KRS to add you on the credits you missed out on? Not really. Because first of all, in order for him to add credits, then he'd have to change the publishing. That'd be a whole legal conversation. They'd have to change the publishing because just to add credit, if you're going to give me credit, then you have to pay. And that's why a lot of people don't give people credit for things that they do, because if you give credit, that means you have to pay. Now, I'm not saying Chris didn't not credit me because he didn't want to pay me. Chris has credited me on just about everything that we did, even stuff that I forgot we did, he gave me my publishing for. And Chris has never jerked me for my publishing, but for whatever reason, a lot of the stuff that I did, not a lot, but a few things that I did or I contributed to early in my career, now that I look back on it, I feel like I should have been credited on certain things. But that's neither here nor there because Chris has given me so much that, like, you know, he gave me an SP1200 that cost $2,000 in 1989. In 1990, he gave me an SP1200. Gave it to me here. Cost $2,000 in 1990. That's like $6,000 today. So now if I did a beat or a piece of a beat and then on that machine and gave it to him, and then I come back a year later like, yo, you didn't give me, I just look at that as being petty. I would never be that petty. There's records that I gave Chris that he used to make records. I didn't produce the song, but I gave him the record that he used. That's not production, but I'm in the mix. That's a great question, though. It would have been nice to have gotten credit on Black Cop because that record was on Return of the Boom Bap, which was like KRS-One's quote-unquote comeback album. And for those of you that's seen The Sound of the Police, I keep saying that. For those of you that's seen the Sex and Violence Breakdown, I'm pretty sure everybody on this channel has already seen it. I talk about how that was the first Boogie Down Productions album not to go gold. Album number 5 was the first one. And Jive blamed me mostly for my production on the album, which I think unfairly, but Jive blamed me mostly for my production on the album as to why the album didn't sell. So for me to have gotten a credit on Return of the Boom Bap, especially on the song Black Cop, which was a big song for us, would have given me credibility that I wasn't super whack, that I had, you know, I had it in me to help create music, you know, because at that time I was just branded as a whack producer and pretty much, I'm not going to say blacklisted, but I was out the game. And I eventually wiggled my way in, also based on my brother. So that's why I would never be like, oh, I didn't get credit on this, because the other stuff that he's done for me is so astronomical that I would never do that. But it would have been nice to have gotten credit on Black Cop. And I've been long-winded. Joey Joe says, Kenny, it's probably good you never met Suge Knight. Actually, you know what's funny? I've heard that Suge was mad cool with people if he didn't want anything from you. And you know what's funny? I may have met Suge Knight and didn't even know. I would have known. Because I met a lot of people before they blew up. And I didn't even remember, and I see them later on, and I'd be like, yo, you know, introduce myself. My name's Kenny, nice to meet you. And they'd be like, man, I met you 4 years ago, 3 years ago. We met over here already. I think I mentioned on the show that happened to me with Shaggy when we did the Soul Train. Shaggy was also on the bill. And I saw Shaggy, he was right there in the hallway. He spoke to my brother and I walked up to him and I was like, hey, how you doing, Shaggy? Nice to meet you. And he was like, come on, man, I'm from Flatbush, man. We met, blah, 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 blah. And he just threw out a time when we met way back. So Shaggy was like insulted that I introduced myself to him in '95. He was like, what? I'm from Flatbush. So Def Rocker says Lauryn Hill is 3 on that chart. I could see that. You know what? Based on the fact that she hasn't rapped as much, I would put her at 3. If she rapped more, she would definitely be number 1 for me. But I could see Lauryn at 3 only because of that. Duke's PC says, looks like new Nas and Primo dropping soon. That's dope. As well as new Ghostface, new Daylight, new Slick Rick, new Mobb Deep, new Raekwon, new Big L, all on Mass Appeal. Gonna be a hot summer. Oh, so that's Nas's company putting all that out? Yeah, it's going to be a hot summer. If all of those records come, it's going to be a hot summer. Jack Swagger says publishing is valuable. Publishing is beyond valuable. You never know where a song will end up. You don't know. Or you could never, if somebody could offer you $25,000 because you was bubbling, and then when you come out, none of your music ever hits, and then you would have never made $25,000 off of publishing, and then you lost out on the publishing deal, which, you know, it's a gamble, you know. But for the most part, holding on to your publishing at least until the smoke clears and you see what kind of artist you're gonna be. I mean, make somebody buy it from you at least. The publishing game, I've heard so many stories. And like I said, BDP, KRS-One and Scott LaRock lost millions of dollars because they don't own the publishing to Criminal Minded album. Millions of dollars. Just off a bad contract. Chris wrote every single word on that album and has nothing to show for it. No royalties, no publishing, nothing. It just helped his name get out there, basically, so he can get a real deal with Jive. And I mean real deal, I mean, we had this conversation already. Terrence Hill says, I'm down with ASCAP. Me too. Jack Swagger says, shout out Nori, but he's not a credible source for music business info. Nori knows the game. I don't know if he's being facetious or not, but teach, man, teach. Each one teach one. Hip hop would not be in the position that it's in if we were taught by our elders. Our elders sat back and let us get jerked. I don't even want to go there. I'm not going to get in that conversation today. Y'all know this is a very touchy subject with me, man. Hip Hop Junkie Plus says, wow, record labels are sneaky like that. Yes, they are. They'll take your publishing. They'll put their names on records. You be seeing names on records. How? Y'all ever watch The Sopranos? And y'all remember Hesh? Remember that episode with Hesh and I think Bokeem went. I'm not gonna butcher his last name. Bokeem was this big time rapper who met Tony Soprano, and Bokeem's grandmother, his grandfather had did business with Hesh back in the day, and Hesh took his grandfather's publishing. And even Tony Soprano was like, come on, Hesh, you know you just wrote your name on those records that these people made. Even Tony Soprano was dissing Hesh for taking the publishing of Bokeem's grandfather. And at the end of the day, Hesh said, you know what, I'm not giving him shit. And Tony backed him like, yo, we the mob and we not giving you nothing. Even though Tony knew Hesh stole that publishing. They still didn't give it to him. That's a fictional example of real life. And here I go again, talking about publishing. I'm gonna move on. I can't make GNU, SCB, GNU, SCB. Thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Says, peace, Kenny. I still think you're a really dope DJ and producer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, these kind of words that people say, you have no idea. It means a lot to me, and it still does. Thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, Terrence Hill says, like when Michael Jackson grabbed the Beatles collection. LOL, yeah, y'all ever heard that story? I'm basically paraphrasing, but Michael Jackson didn't even know what publishing was really. This is when Thriller was out. And he was having a conversation with Paul McCartney of the Beatles, and Paul McCartney was talking to him about that's where the money is and you should invest in people's catalogs. And Michael Jackson was sitting there going, word, that's a good idea. And right after that, the Beatles catalog came up for auction. And Paul McCartney bid, I think it was something like 150 million. This is in the 80s. That's probably like $1 billion. Bid to buy back his own music. And Michael Jackson, his man, who he taught publishing to, outbid him for the publishing rights to the Beatles. That's how Michael Jackson got the Beatles catalog. He outbid his boy for his own music. That's some real, and I think it strained their relationship ever since. Their relationship was strained after that. I've seen Paul McCartney says him and Michael got over it eventually, but for a minute their relationship was strained. This is how I heard it, because of Michael Jackson buying the Beatles collection after Paul McCartney put him on. Joey Joe says Teddy Riley's manager was adding his name to Teddy's writing and publishing credits, and Teddy never paid attention to it for mad years. Yep. There's so many horror stories. I'm not going to harp on this. I swear to y'all, I'm not going to harp on this. But just when you watch these people's stories, pay attention to when their publishing comes up. Rod Justice says some probably sold their publishing for the love of booty. There's any number of reasons why people sold their publishing. Which, by the way, that you brought up Teddy Riley, I want to stand corrected. Somebody corrected me in the comments section and said that I said that Teddy Riley produced It Takes Two by Rob Bass. And I've read that Teddy Riley was an uncredited producer on that song. But Rob Bass said in an interview that Teddy Riley had nothing to do with It Takes Two. He did not produce that. That was him and DJ Easy Rock. So I stand corrected. They said Teddy Riley did a song on that album, but it wasn't It Takes Two. So I stand corrected on that. Yes, let me move on. Martin Waring, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. I really appreciate it. He says, keep these coming, listening to the live shows when I get a chance, and appreciate the platform. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to do this as much as we can. I think this is episode 87. We're on a roll. We did 87 in a row, y'all. Let's go. Thank you so much. KB Play, thank you for your contribution to the channel. Says, peace, KP. If you think about all the songs that sample Criminal Minded, that album has to have made millions. Yeah. I mean, the Notorious B.I.G. used Grab Your Dick If You Love Hip Hop. If You Love Hip Hop. That's from The P Is Free. He used that for Junior Player's Anthem, a gold single and a platinum album, and that was a single and video. The publishing on that song for using that hook was probably worth a few $100,000. That's just that one song. Then you add that Rihanna sampled The Bridge Is Over. She had a song when she first came out. Dee-dee-dee-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-da-dee-day. She's singing that, and they sampled Ooh from The Bridge Is Over in, I think the Trackmasters did that. They sampled it in her song. I believe Rihanna's first album is platinum, if I believe. And that was a single and video. So that's probably another few $100,000. That's just two songs. Then Jennifer Lopez did Jenny from the Block. She used the beat and she used the South Bronx. Jenny from the Block, that album probably sold like 3-4 million. This is just in America. And it was a single and video. The publishing on that song for that portion, because it would have been the beat and the lyrics, was probably close to $1 million. You're looking at almost $2 million off of 3 songs. And there's way more. I'm just going by platinum. Like, I think Ren, MC Ren from NWA sample had a song called Mayday on the Front Line from his EP when he first left NWA. He used The Bridge Is Over. That EP is platinum and that was a video and single, another check. I mean, you could just go down the line. There's tons. Total, there's tons of records. That's what I'm saying. And they got, and B-Boy Records made millions. They're still making money. I saw Criminal Minded just came out. I think, I forgot, Get On Down is putting out, Get On Down Company is putting out Criminal Minded now. I just saw another re-release of that album coming out in 2025. Let's see. I see people talking about. Joey Joe says, I think maybe Noriega was talking about his masters instead of his publishing. Master usage is another whole conversation because that goes into who paid to get the record made. And that's usually the record company owns the master recording. It's like saying there's one piece of the work, the master recording, I guess the 2-inch reel or whatever they want to call it, or it could be an imaginary term, but the master recording, that's another chunk of money because every time someone samples and every time somebody uses the master, like if you sample, you use the publishing and the master because you use the actual record, that's another chunk of money. Just about nobody owns their masters, nobody. That's a record company thing. They pay for the record to get made, and so they own the masters. And the fight now, artists are just understanding what it means to own your masters. And that's the new fight now. But that you're talking tens of millions. Actually, you're talking billions of dollars in lost revenue. The music business is terrible, man. Especially, it's terrible if you know what you're doing. Most people don't know what they're doing. Baby Bloomer says, what song from KRS-One generates the most money from his catalog? That's a great question. That's a question that maybe only KRS can answer. I know that Sound of the Police getting put in bunches of movies don't hurt. Step Into a World was really big. Songs that were on the radio a lot, those songs did, obviously it's gonna make more money for you. So I'm guessing his biggest radio songs like Step Into a World, Love's Gonna Get You, those were probably his biggest radio songs. My Philosophy, those kind of songs probably made the most individually, but that'd be a great question for KRS to answer because a song like My Philosophy, he owns the music and the lyrics. So he owns all of the publishing on a song like that. So, owning all of the publishing on a song could end up making you more money than having a bigger song with you having less percentages. So that'd be a great question to ask KRS. What song generates the most money? That'd be a great, great question. Henry Muniz says, Nori might be talking about how you get your music placed in movies, TV, samples, radio, etc. That's publishing. And when you do a publishing deal, a lot of times the publishing companies will push your music to be in movies and televisions and stuff because they're trying to get their money back. So when you sign a publishing company, you sign to a publishing company for a percentage of your publishing, they're gonna push your stuff because they're trying to get money. So you can get your stuff placed probably quicker with a publishing deal. But I mean, it all depends for different people. And I'm being simplistic in what I'm saying. Of course, it gets deeper technically, but basically what I'm saying is the basic truth. Corey Flood says it gotta be Step Into a World. I would imagine so, but there's a lot of people that divvied up in that record. You gotta understand Blondie gets a chunk, Jesse West, the producer, gets a chunk, KRS gets a chunk. So, you know, who knows? Jason Wall says, I heard Eazy-E got $50,000 just to allow them to use the name Boys in the Hood for the movie. More than Ice Cube made, even though he wrote the song and starred in it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And a lot of times things don't get used in movies and stuff because people just say no. You could just, if you own the publishing, you could just say no. No. Let's see. Joey Joe, why are you doing this, man? Because you know I'm going to get upset. Says, I think A&Rs sometimes are just as shady. What? They're the spokesperson for the record company. They're in cahoots with the record company. I could tell you horrible A&R stories. I say fuck every last one of them. Go fuck yourself. Every A&R person that ever lived. Fuck you. I got a couple of friends that are A&Rs. And most of them I met before they were A&Rs. So we are friends first, and then they happened to become A&R people, and they became very successful. Shout out to them, get your money. But these A&R people are some of the worst people in the world. Fuck them. I could tell y'all crazy stories. We could do a whole chat just on A&Rs. I saw somebody said, this was crazy today. Mike Malone got fired from the Denver Nuggets. It's crazy. That's almost not even fair. He must have gotten an argument with the Joker. That's the only reason why he should get fired. Dude won a championship 2 years ago. Fighting for playoff position, the NBA, they could move, the way things could happen, they could move up to 3 in the next few days. They still have a very good chance to win the championship. Their second best player has been hurt, and he gets fired. There must have been a really big argument somewhere where somebody just told him to leave. H. Bippy says, Kenny, no you didn't. Are you aware of your New York accent? I love it, by the way. How dare you? Yeah, because I said Boston. First of all, New York doesn't have an accent. The rest of America has an accent. Anybody on this channel from New York, help me, I'm in trouble. Help me, please, New York. Help me, I'm in trouble right now. I went too far. Oh. This is another crazy question. Logent 80. Kenny, if you could have signed to any record label in the 90s, what would you have chosen? In the 90s, I would have chosen, oh man, No Limit. I would have been a No Limit soldier. I heard that Master P was giving people one big check for their album, and then he would take the album, and he had a factory going where everything was just going gold. So he was just making a killing, and he owned the label. They were independent. But Snoop always talks highly of Master P, and Snoop always talks about how Master P empowered him to be his own businessman and taught him the ropes, and then let Snoop leave No Limit and become his own boss. Snoop Dogg would not be the Snoop Dogg we know today if it wasn't for Master P helping him get out of his death row contract, protecting him from the people that wanted to hurt him, giving him money, teaching him the game, and then letting him leave. So I don't know how the other people feel on that label because I don't know their situation, but based on what Snoop said, I'm going to say I would have signed to No Limit only because they would have probably given the fairest contract. And they had promotion, so you could have been big and got a decent contract. Everybody else, fuck them. Aunt Knox L says, shout out to the Awesome Two. The Awesome Two is family. I love them. Shout out to Teddy Ted, the Ooh Child. Shout out to Special K. That is family. Let's see, I'm falling behind. For those that just checked, we had an hour. For those that just checked in, this is the DJ Kenny Parker Show. We do this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big up to the Rewind crew. Jack Swagger says Missy Elliott is a different universe than Nicki. Creativity-wise, I can see where you could say that. But you got to remember, this is Billboard we're talking about. Like Def Rocker says, Rod Digger and Bahamadia was not on the list. We're talking about Billboard, so they're talking about, they're going to go for the criteria of the top 10, the top 100. How many top 10 hits did you have on Billboard? So I can see them, I could see where their rankings would come from. They're not talking about skills. Sugar Daddy says the Brat should have been top 10 based on record sales. She had a couple platinum albums. Maybe. I mean, it's all subjective. Hip Hop Junkie says MC Lyte is number one to me. MC Lyte is incredible. I love Lyte. But did MC Lyte, how many records did she have on the Billboard chart? This is a good question. Was Jean Grae on the list? Now, if Jean Grae was on the list, that would be interesting because Jean Grae never had the big commercial success. So where would they put it? That means they would be putting her on the list based on her talent, which means that would throw the whole list off. If you're Billboard, what are you basing it on? But most of these lists aren't really based on any one thing. They're just all over the place. All these lists are ridiculous. Let me scroll down a little bit. I see a lot of people naming their favorite female MCs. Dartmouth says Ladybug Mecca is more lyrical than Lauryn Hill. That's an interesting take. Verse Pro says Lauryn Hill is the most overrated rapper ever. See, that's what I said. Music is too subjective. Everyone has their own opinion. I think Lauryn Hill should be right at the top. I see a lot of names. Mia X. Young M.A., wow. See, Rhythm Rhymes and Elsa says Left Eye should be in this conversation. She's never did a solo record. Are they talking about solo people that's put out a solo project? Or are they just talking about MCs connected to a group? Because Left Eye has rapped on million-selling records, multi-platinum records. So Salt and Pepper's had quite a few multi-platinum records. They should be way up there too. I mean, I think a lot of these people are talking about skills. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit, y'all. I see a lot of female rappers, and I see Mother Superior. Shout out to Mother Superior. She was doing some shows with BDP for a while. Mother Superior was did some shows with us. Benny Doyle says, how much promotion did Jive ever put into the record? Well, like I said on this channel, I think when it comes to BDP, minimal. I think when it comes to some other artists, they put in a tremendous amount of promotion. So it depends on the artist. Jack Swagger says, thank you for this comment. Says, it's wild for Jive to blame Kenny for the downfall of sex and violence. They not only did they do that, but they hated everything I ever did even after that. I definitely would have not have produced any KRS-One records if he was not my brother. Jive hated everything I did except for the Sound of the Police remix. They like that. And if you guys go back and watch my Sound of the Police 12-inch breakdown, I'll tell you how that whole thing came about and how I even got to do that remix. They hated everything else that I ever did. Everything. And that's okay. VHS Hip Hop says, Kenny, can you talk about the economics of touring and has it gotten better? That's a great question. And you know, all the years I toured with BDP, but I never really got into the financial part of it because that wasn't my lane. I tried to stay in my lane, which was DJing the show and, you know, doing what KRS-One needed me to do on stage. So I tried not to have too many conversations with the management. Shout out to Wes Powell, shout out to Simone. But I have a pretty decent grasp on touring, and basically, if you're fortunate enough to get a hit record, people will pay you. First of all, most of the time you get signed to a booking agent. And they're the ones who have connections with all of the venues. Most of the venues go to the booking agents to get groups for their venues. This is back in the day. Now Live Nation and Ticketmaster have basically monopolized the whole thing. But historically, a booking agent, you'd sign to a booking agent, they would take 10% of whatever you make. Let's throw out a number, $10,000. First of all, back in the 80s and 90s, if you made $10,000 a show, you were pretty big in rap. But let's use that number, easy number, 10,000. Say you getting, say the booking agency can get you 10 G's a night. They're gonna take 1,000 off the top. And then you probably have a tour manager or something like that who organizes the tour, make sure you get your money, whatever. They're gonna get 10%. So that's 20% taken. And most of the time you get 50% of your money up front to secure the date. That is to secure the date. That means if I say you're gonna be here on April 30th, I'm giving you 50% of the money, which means you should be there on April 30th. That's to secure the date. If something happens and the show gets canceled or whatever, you keep that 50%. That is your 50% to secure the date. Now, when you get to the venue, right before you go on, you get your other 50%, which is usually your tour manager who deals with all of that. So 20% usually goes right out off the top just for the booking agent and your tour manager. And then whatever else you have to pay, like sometimes transportation and hotels are separate. You get another chunk of money for transportation and hotels. Sometimes it's all included in the 10,000, depends. And then if you have a band, if you have, you know, a DJ, if you have dancers or whatever else you have going on, that comes out of the money. They say a good rule of thumb is if you could bring home 60% of your money, you're doing well. So if you get 10,000 a night, if you could get 60, if you can get $6,000, 5,500, something like that, if you could bring that home, you're doing good. that's, you know, and these are rough numbers, but that's how the mentality was back in the day. Now the question is, has it gotten better? I don't know if it's gotten better. Now they're doing these, see, no, it's gotten worse. Let me tell you why. Fucking record companies. Because now what they have, remember I always tell you guys that the record company deals were horrible? They got worse. Now what you have is what they call a 360 deal. I'm giving y'all a lot of information. Please bear with me. You can see why I hate these people. Back in the day, your record deal was for records sold, basically. And then there's publishing. We talked about that. Your merchandising, meaning all t-shirts, whatever you sell, is yours. That's money. That's a lot of money. Merchandising is a ton of money. Most of the time, the record company will partner with you. Sometimes they have a deal, like they'll take a percentage of your merchandise. Sometimes they'll partner with you to sell merchandise. But merch is a big part of touring, where a lot of artists make a lot of money, sometimes even more than what they got paid to show up. That was your money for the most part. And tour money, whatever you got paid to perform, that was your money. Record companies in the 2000s decided that because of Napster and all of the streaming, not streaming, the bootlegging, that they were losing money on royalties. And they was like, there's no longer, we're not making the money that we used to make selling records because of all of this bootlegging. We need to get more money out of the artists. Then they decided artists are making too much money on the side. Why should we sign an artist, blow them up, and then they're able to make money like in movies, television, you know, other places, and we get none of the money? So now they decided to make what you call a 360 deal, which means they get money off of everything you do, and a lot of times it's half. So before, where your tour money was your money, now they're taking 50% of all your tour money. Your merchandise, which was your money, now they're taking 50% of your merchandise. If you do a movie acting, if you manage to land a role, you go out, you audition, you land a role on a television show or movie, the record company can take half of that too. They're taking half of any income you make. That's called a 360 deal. And that's the new model in music now. That started in like I would say, not started, but it became popular in like the mid 2000s on. So these artists that are come out now, the record company got them in a chokehold. They're probably looking back at the 90s when I said it was terrible. Artists now are looking back at the 90s going, yo, y'all had it good. Y'all got to keep your merchandising. So now that's a long-winded answer to the question. Has it gotten better? It's gotten worse. Live Nation bought up just about all of the venues around the world. They either own or in partnership with just about all the venues. And I mean all the venues, I mean the big arenas and even some of the smaller clubs Live Nation have bought. So now in order to really do a tour and get money, a lot of times you have to deal with Live Nation. And they might give you a chunk of money up front and they make all the money on the back. It's just become worse for the artists. So you're getting, Live Nation is chunking into your money, and then the record company is chunking into your money, and then Live Nation is raising the prices along with Ticketmaster to the point where the average person can't even afford it. Only corporations are buying tickets, so your real fans can't even see you. And not to get too long-winded on this, y'all, I already have, but to answer your question, I think it's gotten worse. I think there's a lot of places to perform, but you're going to end up getting less money. Now, I'm sure there's people out there that know the economics better than I do, but how can it be better if you signed a 360 deal? And these days, they might not even sign you unless you take a 360 deal. Like, we're not even accepting anything other than a 360 deal. So yeah, so to answer your question, I think it's worse. I hate these people, man. Brand Yakubian says, hi, Kenny. Michael Jordan is famous for hating hip hop. I heard that. Although somebody did say that, who said, was it Common? Common said he was a ball boy for the Chicago Bulls. Was it Common? Was a ball boy for the Chicago Bulls back in the day. And he said the first time he saw Michael Jordan, he had a big box. I think he was a rookie or a sophomore, and he came into the arena playing Friends by Houdini in his box. So I don't know if he hated hip hop or maybe he just liked Houdini, but the question is, have you met any NBA players who loved hip hop or BDP? Tons. Chris told me many stories of basketball players he met that loved him. He had great conversations with Charles Oakley. Let me talk about the Knicks. Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing and him were cool. He used to live down the block from Patrick Ewing. KRS-One's son that passed away, rest in peace to Randy. KRS-One's son, Randy, and Patrick Ewing's son used to hang out. They were cool. Mark Jackson was a BDP fan. And I never got to go to any Knick games, y'all. Kyrie Irving is a KRS-One fan. I'm sure there's tons. I'm just thinking Greg Anthony. These are people that I've seen or met. Either Chris has told me about or I've met them and they told me this. Remember Jason Williams from the Nets who ended up going to prison? He was friends with Scott LaRock. I used to see him in the club. We used to talk all the time. I'm sure there's dozens and dozens. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. That's a great question. Chris told me he met Dominique Wilkins back in the day. You know, probably that'd be a great question for Chris, even though KRS is not a big sports fan. He'll watch the NBA like Game 7. He'll check in on like Game 7 of the NBA. He'll watch like that. But he's not like a big sit down and watch sports fan. So a lot of these people that he met, I'll tell y'all a quick funny story. Back in '89, Chris had went somewhere and there was like a big party with a bunch of athletes there. And he said he came in there and that's when he said he met, he said Michael Jordan was there. He said Jordan didn't speak to him, but he recognized Jordan. This was in '89. He said Dominique Wilkins was there. He said all the basketball players were coming up and speaking to him. And he said, but there was this one guy I was talking to for most of the night. And he said he just got traded to the Knicks. His name was Charles. And Chris is going, this guy Charles, me and Charles were talking most of the night. I'm like, Charles Oakley, who just got traded to the Knicks? He was like, I don't know his last name. His name was Charles. I'm like, damn, Chris. He was talking to Oakley the whole night, didn't even know who he was. But I say all that to say, he's probably met a bunch of people and don't know. I met Anthony Mason. He was mad cool. Just a ton of them. Kenny Anderson from the Nets, that's my man. He told me straight up he was a huge BDP fan. He said, even though I'm from Queens, I'm a BDP fan. He did tell me that. Great question. All right, I'm doing the Benny Doyle scroll down because I'm mad behind. I'm just going to jump in right here. Kennard Roberts says, Kenny, you're right, because New York was the first state. Oh, it was? I must have missed that part of history class. Yeah, New York doesn't have an accent. Everybody else has an accent. Yeah, it's Boston Celtics. I said it. Oh my God, I can never go back to Boston ever again. I see a lot of people talking about Sha Rock should be mentioned in any female. She's the mother of everybody. She birthed everybody, just about. Roger Moore says, hello from Trinidad and Tobago. Big up the Trinis in the building. I'll tell you something about a New York accent. My best childhood friend growing up, get the book. Y'all know who I'm talking about. His name is Darryl. He's a Trini. I remember we went into the store to get some food, and I said, can I have a chicken roti? And he turned to me and he said, don't embarrass me in here. It's not roti, it's roti. Roti, not roti. And I think that was my New York accent. To me, it says chicken roti. But of course, it's roti. So that was funny. Speaking of New York accents. Patrick Wise says, Finesse and Sequence was just as dope as Salt and Pepper. Wow. I liked Finesse and Sequence, and I was cool with, I met both of them, but I was cool with Finesse. Me and Finesse was cool. I wouldn't put them on the same platform as Salt and Pepper, but they were dope. Remember Chill with the Bass Game? I'm really digging. I see people talking about Boss, Oaktown 357. Markeith Bankroll says Cardi B surpassed Queen Latifah as the second richest female rapper of all time with an estimated 101 million net worth, and she has one album. She has one album, and she made $100 million. That's why I say the record company is the record business is terrible, but you could still make millions. But know that she made $100 million. If this is true, that means someone else made $1 billion. That means she generated over $1 billion if she made $100 million. Nitty Gritty says Salt and Pepper equals pure trash, profanity, sex. I never know they use profanity. I love Salt and Pepper, so I can't be in that one. Moni Love, that's my girl. Big up to Moni Love. There's a lot of female rapper talk on here. Let's see. She Bees Music says, hey, DJ Kenny, what's up? I don't recognize that name. What's up? Val Art says, will we ever get that Sneak Attack album breakdown? Yeah, I'm working on that. Oh, if you guys didn't get a chance to check out my walkthrough of the Temple of Hip Hop, I dropped it 2 days ago. I did a quick walkthrough of the Temple of Hip Hop. I got quite a few interesting comments. I was gonna go into it today, but I think I'm not gonna do it. I think I'm gonna go into it maybe next week, or I might come on again. I might do a Friday night live, y'all, if I'm not doing nothing on Friday, and I might address that. But I had some interesting comments that I wanted to make on the Temple of Hip Hop. But please, y'all, if y'all did not check out that video, the Temple of Hip Hop as it is constructed today, I did like a walkthrough for you guys to check it out. And to answer your question, I am gonna do the Sex and Violent Sneak Attack breakdown of the songs I did. Like I said, I was not in the studio for all of it, and I just went back and listened to the songs that I did too, to kind of refresh my mind of what was going on at that time. So yeah, I'm gonna do that if you guys wanna hear about it. It's just that there's like 15 songs on that album, something like that. And I did 4, but I wasn't around for the other ones. So it's not really like a whole breakdown. I could just break down what I did. Divine Existence says, peace, KP. KRS recently mentioned during a live performance that D-Nice made the beat for I'm Still Number One. Yeah, I saw Chris mention that and give Derek credit for that. Of course, D-Nice posted it on his page. That's how I saw it. There's some, I've heard different stories of how that record got made. That's something that DJ Doc, also who needs to be on this channel, can talk about. The question is, will we eventually get a D-Nice interview on here? Hopefully. D-Nice is so busy, man. Y'all know he's the biggest DJ in the country right now, so. But I would love to get a chance to bring my boy D on here. I've had a chance to talk to him in like a couple years. But last time I saw him, we talked for a long ass time. Engage VR channel says, teach them. Yes, I got a little deep-winded. Benny Doyle says, damn, Kenny dropped a big F. Yeah, man. When it comes to the record company and these record people, that's when it brings out an emotion in me, because they are the worst of the worst people on earth. Floetry says, not the worst people on earth, but as far as business goes, they're the worst. Floetry says, I would not sign a deal that gave the label my show money. The problem is you wouldn't have a choice now. Back in the day, you could have. Now, if you don't sign a 360 deal, you probably can't get a deal now. So to say I wouldn't sign that deal is to say I'm just not signing. I'm just going to stay independent. They're strong-arming people into signing these deals. I don't know if this is true. This is wild. Ant Knox L says, Lord Jamar and Sadat X said Pooh Bah used to take their per diem before they would get to the studio. Well, I didn't know there was a per diem to go to the studio. A per diem is usually like money that's given to the people that work for the artist for food. So like, say you're a dancer or a musician or a DJ, you'll get your fee for the night. Let's say you make $250 a night to play the guitar for a group. Then there's something called a per diem. So you might get $50 or $30 or whatever it is for food. So you can go and spend it on whatever you want, room service, whatever you want. Even in the NBA, they get millions and millions of dollars and they still get a per diem. I think the NBA, they get something like $300 a day in per diem. They get something like $300 to spend in room service a night in the NBA, something crazy like that. But I didn't know there was per diem to go to the studio. But if Pooh Bah was taking Sadat and their money, I want to bring Sadat back on this channel. It's been a minute. We wanted to have Sadat on every month. I've been running busy, so I'm going to hit him up again so we can bring Sadat on here. And I'm going to ask Sadat if he said that. Hip Hop Junkie Plus says, I'm loving the industry rants. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I get real emotional when it comes to that because it's bullshit. KP bugging out tonight on the labels and I'm here for it. Thank you, B.R. Valentine. I can even go into so many more stories. I'm just don't want to bore y'all with all of this, but it's so many horror stories. Just when you go back and watch, just when you watch these people, you ever watch like documentaries on people and things? I watch all the documentaries. Matter of fact, I just watched the Luther Vandross documentary a couple days ago called Never Too Much, which is dope. Y'all should check that out. Rest in peace to the great Luther Vandross. But if you ever get to watch documentaries and you'll hear people talk about how they got jerked and how they didn't know, it's horrible. Live Sound says A&Rs and record companies bring out the BX and Kenny. Yeah, it does, man. Please mind my language. But the only way I can really express how I feel about these people is to say it how I say it. Betty Doyle, this is a quote from Sadat. I know some A&Rs that now wash cars. That's a fly-ass line. They decided rap stars when they were in power. Yeah. A&Rs did some horrible stuff. But if y'all want to, y'all let me know in the comments. We could do an A&R talk about just what they did back in the day up to now, and it's bad, man. DJ Richie Ruckus says, that's the ugliest deal out there. F360 deals, yeah. It's the worst deal. The deals were already horrific, and then it went from horrific. What's worse than horrific? It went from the frying pan into the fire. Terrace Hill says, you gotta be indie, but then it's hard to get play. The problem with being an indie is you can't get on radio, you can't get your videos, and you need money behind you. You need money for the machine. The machine feeds off of money. And that's where the record company has advantage, because they have the money to put into the machine. If you're an indie and you don't have money, it's hard to break through and be heard. So it's like a catch-22. Yeah, being indie would be perfect. Now it's a little bit better because of platforms like YouTube, and anyone can put their music in iTunes and sell it. You could put your stuff on Spotify. Spotify is another whole subject of horrible. But you can, as an independent, can put your music in the same platform to sell as a major. But still, the promotion is the hardest thing for an indie. Jack Swagger says, thank Leo for the 360. Did he invent the 360 deal? I'm not sure. But Def Jam is notoriously bad for record labels. We're at an hour and a half, y'all. I'm gonna go a little bit longer because I wanna, I'm like 15 minutes behind in the comments. Yes, Orlando, anything Orlando, we gotta talk about that. I told you I was waiting on the word from something. I'm gonna get back to you on that. Please, I did not forget you. And Knox L says, if we keep asking these type of questions, Kenny gonna start flipping tables on the live. Yes, I need something to throw right now. I don't want to break something. But yeah, let me scroll down. I'm gonna do a last little scroll down and see what I missed. KB Play, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Question is, who made the Jack of Spade beat? I believe D Nice produced that song or co-produced it. D Nice and KRS did that song, but I think D Nice had the loops. Shout out to D Nice's production. How did KRS feel when Ghostface used that sample for Cherche La Ghost? I never asked Chris that question. I don't know the answer to that question, but Ghostface did find the sample. The sample is a reggae record called, am I ratting? Let me not say the sample, just in case it's not cleared, but Ghostface found the reggae record and he used it as well. And he killed it too. Shout out to Ghost, shout out to the Woo. But D Nice was on that beat. Thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. I'm gonna answer a couple more and I'm gonna jump off. Patrick White says, bring Sadat back and ask him about Regina Hall. Is there something going on that I'm missing? Hip Hop Junkie says, that Luke doc was fire. Yeah, it was. There's been quite a few Luther Vandross docs, but I think this is the one that really if you want to, if you like Luther Vandross, I love Luther. I grew, we grew up on his music. If you really want to get the full feel of Luther Vandross, this one is the one. It's called Never Too Much, which is a great song, by the way. I think that second verse in Never Too Much is one of the great verses in the history of R&B, in my opinion. Patrick Wise says, Kenny cursed. I hope we get to show number 88. I know, right? I might get flagged for this one. Great question. Henry Cedillo says, I love documentaries. I wish they have done an episode of Boogie Down Productions history on an Unsung TV series. They, Unsung, did reach out to KRS. I don't know how it went. Probably didn't go well because it didn't have, this was years ago. I want to do the BDP documentary. And there was a BDP, there was a Criminal Minded documentary that Chris was doing in 2008. I think it was going to be for the 25th anniversary of Criminal Minded. And he has all of this footage. He interviewed Marley Marl, Red Alert, Said G, all the people that helped make the album. It was dope, and then it never came out. So the footage is just sitting there. I'm on there, Chris is on there. I would like to pick that up and finish it. I would love, I don't think anybody could do a BDP documentary like me. That's just my own ego. Papa Sincere says, Angie Stone spoke on how dirty they did her in one of her last lives. Yeah. Def Rocker says, Kenny, you just cursed more than Rakim. I probably just cursed right now more than the Guard's whole catalog. And this right here is gonna make me mad, and I'm not gonna get mad. I'm just gonna leave it. Sugar Hill Rackets was robbing all their artists. That's a whole subject I wanna get into, but I'm not gonna do it tonight. But it makes me mad. Never Edda Fisher says, shout out Dante Ross. That's the homie. Shout out to Dante Ross. A great A&R person, by the way. Yes, do the A&R talk. Trig says, I want to hear the horrible A&R stories. Terrence Hill says, bring Lenny S and let's talk A&R. I heard that Lenny S is my dude to the day I die. That's my homie. I met Lenny S in 1992, years before he was down with Rockefeller. That's my guy who happened to become an A&R person, happened to become very successful as an A&R person, but that's my friend. So I don't look at Lenny S as an A&R person. I look at him as a friend. Corey says, whole different game 2025. Yeah, the game now is crazy. The game right now is even worse. All right, I'm gonna scroll all the way down to the bottom and just answer these last questions, and I'm gonna jump off. Def Rocker says, would you interview Brother Jay? Of course I would. I would love to talk to Brother Jay. I did a whole KRS-One versus X-Clan story on this channel. I'm pretty sure all you guys saw it. We can get to the bottom of a lot of things. Absolutely, I would interview Brother Jay. What did I do here? Oh yeah, Tybo's 20 says they did one on Scott LaRock. It was like an unsung, yeah. And I think D Nice was saying that wasn't the whole story, if I recall. But yeah, that's right, they did do one on Scott LaRock. Yep. Tampa Bay Boston Terrier says, KP, holla at Michael Rappaport and finish the BDP documentary. Michael Rappaport and KRS-One was supposed to do something many years ago, and it didn't work out. I think around the time, or maybe before, the Tribe documentary, but right around that time when he was doing the Tribe, he was trying to do some stuff with KRS too, but for some reason it didn't work out. I was not there for that, but I heard about it. Terrence Hill says, I also want to do a BDP documentary. Yes, and Terrence Hill, you got a lot of footage and a lot of insight on BDP. That would be dope maybe to hook up and do something really dope. But a real one, though. Def Rocker says there should be a docu-movie on and Larry Davis. Chris told me, you know Larry Davis was a rap promoter. He promoted shows. He actually brought Boogie Down Productions to a show in the Bronx. Larry Davis booked BDP back in the day before he became infamous. For those that don't know who Larry Davis is, he's an infamous person in the 80s hip hop, in the 80s crime world. And he was also a hip hop promoter and brought BDP to the Bronx for a show. Yeah, he had a tough time in prison too. All right. I'm going to jump off. Patrick Wise says Regina Hall is Sadat's ex. A word? I did not know that. Wow, I did not know that. I don't know if I would ask him that question. JT put this out there. I'm just going to leave that at that and not mention it. I wasn't the one that read it. All right. Gregory Netta says Kenny Parker gets a double technical foul. Yeah, I just got tossed. Okay. I'm out of here. Thank you guys so much. I may come on Friday night to do like a Friday night live if you guys would like, and I want to talk about my Temple of Hip Hop video, and if you guys want to talk about A&Rs, we could get a little deeper into that. Or we could just BS. It don't matter. We have no format here. Big up to the Rewind crew for all of y'all that's going to check this out later on. And God willing, if we don't do Friday night, I'll catch you Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And by the way, I had another guest confirm that he wants to do the show later on in April, so in a couple of weeks. And this is a big one for me, so this is going to be dope. I'll let you guys know when we solidify it. All right, I am out of here. Peace. I'll catch you guys next week.